you know, a couple of years ago, the federal government signed the Not Too Young to Run bill into law. And ever since, a lot of Nigerians have been hoping to see very young candidates vie for political offices. Quite a number of them had made efforts, have expressed, you know, their intentions, have also thrown in their hearts at some point in time. Some have run in for governors, and we've seen relatively young people as well try their hands on the office of the president as well. Now, even at that time, quite a number of people insisted that, look, we need to give this some gestation period, some time for it to develop, and then eventually we'll start seeing more young people, you know, vie for political offices, you know. But even as we look at, let's look at the presidential candidates. We have them in their 70s, in their 60s, you know. Very few are below the age within the 50 bracket and all of that. But then, we're going to be looking at that. But in this regarding this, for the sake of this conversation, our conversation will be Road to 2023 Youth Participation in Politics. Youth participation in politics. Our guest today on the program is Taslim Ahmed. Now, Taslim Ahmed is also running for the office as a member of the House of Assembly in Adamawa State on the platform of Action Alliance, you know. But he's a very young person. Like I told him before we even went into the conversation, I'm feeling like one uncle sitting here, you know, where I want to give, you know, my aburo, when you go to politics, something like this, something like that. But I'm sure he's politically savvy enough to do this. But I need to ask you this, first of all. When you look at the political landscape, doesn't it bother you that you might just be lost in the crowd? You know, just like, I want to come, I'm just curious from a candidate point of view right now. Don't you feel you're going to be lost in the crowd? Because I was talking to some other gentleman who is running on the platform of one of the big parties, and what he told me was he was going to travel, he had to go and travel to deliver this number of bags of rice and all of that. He was just saying all of this, and I'm like, okay, all right. Now that in my head, I was actually calculating the amount of money he's going to use for a lot of that. And I'm sure you're going to come across people like that. Going, okay, so how are you dealing with that in the first instance?
Just slight correction. I'm actually running for House of Reps.
Okay, not state.
Yes.
Not state, yeah. Okay.
And a lot of people are shocked when they hear that.
Oh, yeah.
They say, well, you're very young. Well, I guess I've always traveled, let's say, against the current, you know. I started business at the age of 16, first of all. This is my 10th year, basically, in business. I've, in every single time I was starting something, it was always the same thing. Well, you're really way too young. Don't you think you should wait until you're older? And, well, I'm a student of history. And history has shown me that really I don't think it's ever been a time where it turned on the age of the person. It always turned on the ability of that person and then the willingness of people to sort of follow that person. So to answer your question about getting lost in the crowd, I actually decided consciously to run on a platform that was lesser known. My intention was to run as an independent candidate, which is something the hashtag not too young to run bill also afforded me. I was refused that opportunity by INEC. I don't know if it was due to my own campaign team having issues with registering but the idea being we want to change the way campaigns are conducted. We don't want to run bags of rice types of campaign. We want to run a campaign based on a clear message, based on an ideology, based on the idea that, based on the idea that we can build a country without necessarily bribing people and spending money for people to come out and vote. If the message is we are going to do things for you and people actually believe that we are going to achieve those things we say we are going to achieve. The way I intend to do that is my own type of, I call it a CSR-focused campaign. Now, I found out that in my constituency, people don't even know what the House of Reps means, what the House of Reps member is supposed to do for them. They don't even understand what, so they don't really, they only vote for the House of Reps because it happens at the same time as the presidential elections. So I decided that my campaign would be focused, instead of spending money on bags of rice and bribing people, it would be spending money on enlightening them about what the House of Reps is supposed to do for them, what all of those leaders that came before me were supposed to have been doing, but haven't been doing, in the same breath, to do a few things for them.
But Teslim, you know, in reality, in stark reality, Atinuke, you're in the Senate. You go to the Senate and you see people line up in front of the office of their senators or their House of Rep. Yeah. They're either paying school fees, they're either paying medical bills, they're either giving money for weddings. These things happen.
Exactly, and there are some people that are on their payroll.
Yeah, I mean, this is reality we're talking about. So how do you even want to start changing that mindset in the first instance?
Well, I know it's going to be very difficult. Nothing worth doing is really easy to do. But I have some ideas on how to achieve that. First of all, the major reason why these people go to their senators and their House of Reps is because the government is neglecting a lot of its duties. That is one of the main reasons why they have to actually go to meet those people. So what I want to do, part of the job of a House of Reps is, we are the ones who are supposed to decide what the government budget is. Meaning that we have the ability to actually insert our own constituency projects, something a lot of the House of Reps members neglect to do. By doing so, you can actually provide these people with a means of livelihood instead of handouts, 5,000, 10,000. You teach a man to fish, of course, the saying goes, you know. This is the approach that I want to try to bring into politics. The key word here, of course, being try, because I know, again, this is going to be a very, very difficult thing to achieve. But it's the only way forward. If we don't do it this way, then we are actually going to lose this country one way or the other. I mean, you are aware, of course, that the government is currently having trouble paying its own, paying virtually any kinds of obligations it has. We're still going to start having trouble paying our debts as well. So we actually have to start moving against that, or Nigeria might become a failed state.
Okay, all right. Talking about constituency projects, we've seen a lot of funny constituency projects. It's either they're buying hand dryers, it's either they're buying sewing machine, or, you know, boreholes, or just the regular. What are you going to do differently that is going to be, you know, at least out of the regular? So
my constituency, I happen to understand exactly what they need from sitting down with them and talking to them. My constituency people, mostly they're farmers, right? So what I want to do is I want to try to do 4 things for them in terms of farming. One, I want to provide training for them. That's actually try to bring them to the first world, or at least the second world in terms of how they farm. I'll give you an example. In the Netherlands, you get about 500,000 kilograms of tomatoes per hectare of land. In Nigeria, you get 5,000 kilograms. That's a difference of 100 times. Of course, anybody will tell you that the soil in Nigeria is far better than that of Netherlands. The weather conditions, everything is more favorable. What is the difference? It's just 4 things. It's the equipment, the seeds that they use, the fertilizer, that's how much of it they actually apply, and just basic practices. This is it. This is basically the only difference. And this information is not the holy grail of knowledge. It's just that the government has neglected to put a focused effort on trying to achieve these things. So these are the kind of ways that we want to improve their livelihoods. I want to also try to provide them with greater access to land, to actually try to farm in those ways. Now, it's difficult to meet somebody that has been farming the same way for 50 years and change the way he's been farming in one day. So as a supplement to this, we want to try methods that have been tried in other countries. We want to try to bring experienced farmers, potentially foreign ones, because right now there's food insecurity globally because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, let's call it, right? People are willing to explore new ways to, you know, get more food, because there is a huge scarcity right now, which is what is causing the food inflation predominantly. So if we are able to get these people to come and organize large farmlands, at the very least, we soak up that excess unemployment in the rural areas, which is something that I want to try to do. Now, this is more of course, this is less the role of a member House of Reps in the traditional sense. It's more the role of, I would say, the federal government, the state government, and philanthropists. But we have to provide innovative solutions to these problems we are facing now, because these problems are special problems.
So your major focus will just be on agriculture?
This is only one thing in terms of my constituency. Of course, water is extremely important, because with water, the major part of my constituency, they don't have water. So of course, this is something I want to try to provide for them. water is essential for so many reasons, but one of the main things really is for the irrigation, right? Irrigation facilities. That is key because it's going to assist them so much in so many ways. Now, of course, we want to find ways to provide jobs because that is really the crux of the issue, is how do you get them more jobs? Agriculture is one arm of that. It's very difficult for me as a member of House of Reps to do it much more than provide training programs to try to teach them certain types of skills they could go and either get jobs with or try to start their own jobs, try to start their own businesses. My cousins, some of them started sewing and all of that, but they don't have the ability really to develop that market because it's a very small market. So again, it's difficult because before you can convince foreign investors to come into a country and try to provide jobs in a local environment, which is what most countries did to develop. That's all the countries that developed rapidly. I'm talking about Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, basically all of these kinds of places. You need to have a stable currency, which is something we don't have, which is something that people are afraid is going to get worse. You then need to have stable government policy. We don't even have a coherent government policy, let alone a stable one. Then you still need to have security, basic levels of security. Security of the individual, of course, the person who is coming to invest, and the security of his property. Now, none of these things are in the hands of the state government, let alone the hands of the member House of Reps. They are all in the hands of the federal government, except for the currency.
All right. Okay, so I need to touch on this. Now, when we talk about youth participation, we're not only looking at those who are vying for offices, we're also looking at those who will go to the polling units to vote, those who may probably be foot soldiers during the campaigns and what have you. And we've seen a bit of that. There's been so much talk about the fact that the youth will take over the nation and all of that, you know. We've heard even some of the presidential candidates talking about this. Do you see that actually happening? Because over the years, we have been on the field when we go out to cover elections, and you see the level of voter apathy, you know. We find out that even with the current statistics put out by INEC, with a low number of elderly people, you still see these same elderly people coming out with all level of enthusiasm to vote, but with young people it's different. Do you see that changing in 2023?
Honestly, I've thought about this a lot as well, because it's one of the key things that might assist me to win a campaign. So this is, for me, my own selfish reasons. But then looking at, of course, the general, I mean, they say 70% of the new 12 million people that registered to vote are young people. But honestly, I don't see a major increase in young voter participation happening. When I go to the market or I go elsewhere, I see people starting now to participate a lot more. There is definitely going to be an increase in the number of people who participate, a significant increase. But I still think it's going to come more from the elderly people, because I already see them wearing their campaign hats and, you know, hear them talking about these things. I still don't hear any young people, even people my age, talking about the political situation, except as, you know, an afterthought. It's considered, it is still the people above the age of 30. So I'm not very optimistic that this is the time, but I can see, but there's going to be a gradual improvement likely, you know. This is my own thinking anyways.
Okay, so in other words, it's sounding not too hopeful for me.
No, not very hopeful, to be honest. It's very sad. Now, okay, so one of the most fortunate things that has come out of the Buhari administration is that he has managed somehow to raise the political awareness of people. Now, of course, how he did that is a matter of debate. Some people say it's because the hardship is way too much and people have had enough. It could be that, but it's still a very good thing that there is a rise in that political consciousness. And it is definitely going to lead to more people coming out to vote. But again, you can tell early on, at least history has shown that you can tell what is going to happen in an election very early on, what kind of people are going to participate. And it's the same thing. It's the same, there's still that same level of, you know, it's still the people who go out to actually, except in the rural areas, people who go out to get their voter cards are still mostly those people above that particular age that would stand in line and put that extra effort. The conversations are still happening around the older people, because it's possibly because the younger people don't actually know what's going on or don't understand if they can change it or don't believe they can change it. For whatever reason it may be, I don't understand. But I don't see much of an improvement, to be honest. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's quickly get to this. There's this general notion that the youths are not ready. Whenever a youth comes up, you see people, you know, not really encouraging. They rather queue behind a successful and an elderly candidate rather than, you know, support their own. What backlash, I would just want you to, you know, put us through the backlash you've gone so far, especially from youth.
It's funny, I've actually had, every time I go to meet someone, I say, because I'm trying to run a campaign that's funded by the general public. So every time I start going out and meeting people and tell them, okay, this is what I'm trying to do, they all, in fact, yesterday, someone was telling me, you know what, I think you shouldn't come out to run. You should probably wait until 4 years from now, try to support a candidate now, and then maybe come out later. And this is what is killing the youth, right? If the youth decided that this election, they were going to come out and vote, the youth have the majority of the votes. Between 18 to 43 is close to 70% of the total votes.
Yeah.
And somehow we still manage to elect those older people. Of course, part of the reason is because people are going to vote for PDP or APC generally. It's not because PDP is good or APC is good. It's a matter of branding. You know APC, you know PDP, you don't know Action Alliance, you know, you barely know SDP, you might know a little bit about the Labour Party, but it is a matter of branding, which is why the only way for us to change that image, right, is for us to actually come out and be serious and build an actual party, actually go out and build that brand image. It's a lot of work. You have to be ubiquitous. You have to appear as much as the old men do on the same media, meaning we have to be given the same time and space on the media, that's on the TV.
That's expensive.
Yeah, it's very, and this is why, because this is the way it works is the economic system determines the political system, and the political system determines the economic system. So as long as they continue to have all the money, they will continue to control the political system. Of course, once in a while, you have that shake-up where people say, you know what, we've had enough, let's change it. But that can be a soft or a hard revolution. Soft revolution meaning people simply come out and decide, let's vote them out. A hard revolution, unfortunately, means, you know, more aggressive means. We've seen that before in Nigeria's history, quite a few times. Yes. Now, so this is, so in my case, I guess, I would say, even the young people don't believe in the young people. And that really is
just like the case of women not believing in women.
Yes, but it's funny. So I noticed in our own area, the women are actually more active than the men. It's something I was very shocked to learn about. It's one of the few places actually in Nigeria that this happens. You know,
and you think, no, curiously, since you mentioned that, let me just digress a little bit. You know, interestingly, I saw a poster. Is a campaign billboard or so, and the presidential candidate was of a different party, right? The governorship candidate was of a different party, and then it went down all that way. So it's like that particular community selected those they wanted to vote for. You know, I have not seen or had to talk to anybody from Adamawa State. You're from Adamawa State. What is it looking like for the sole female candidate vying for governorship? So, just out of curiosity.
So first of all, you have to understand that I'm highly inexperienced in this field. So I bring with me a fresh perspective.
Yeah, very quickly, please, because we are running out of time.
Everywhere I go, they're talking about Binani. Binani, that's her name. Everywhere I go, that's what they talk about. Somehow, I walk into a shop in a local town, in an actual real-life village, and they were talking about her after the primaries. So this means that something is happening there, and they say good things about her because apparently she ran a very welfare-oriented campaign, and people hear about that. People in Adamawa, that's the kind of thing they care about. This is what happens generally when the level of education, of course, is low.
She had a landslide victory over
but then, well, that was money-based anyways, I think.
But I have to throw this in beyond that
we
now.
We are running out of time.
Just quickly.
We're running out of time.
Let's look at this. How about mentorship? Mentorship is a major thing. You're very young, apparently. So when you look back, I have come across quite a number of politicians, and they tell you about the mentorship they've had. What is it in your own case?
Well, my mentorship has been purely visceral, meaning from books. I decided consciously in 2015 that I wanted to make a change in Nigeria. So I started reading about the great leaders of before. And these are the people who have mentored me. Now, of course, my mentors have not been in the field of politics. Umar Modibo was one of the people who gave me confidence to actually, go into business, and that led me directly in some ways into where I am now. But all of my political mentors, let's call them, have been you know, have been leaders of old, people like Nehru and Lee Kuan Yew, people like that, going as far back as the 1900s, you know. It's unfortunate that there's not, again, I'm careful to say this, but there's not a lot of people to look at in Nigeria's history or present and say, this is someone I want to become like or emulate, because you emulate people based on their record of success. What is successful about Nigeria to want to emulate? To be honest with you, it's you know, it's shameful. So yeah, I hope that's not a very disappointing answer.
No. I mean, it's your thoughts and all that. Tinuke?
All right, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah,
hopefully we'll have you some other time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is more like the size of the show today. And today we've had the privilege of talking about two very interesting angles on politics. First, it was imperatives of issue-based campaigns with Wale Badmus, and we just finished a conversation now with Teslim Ahmed. Teslim, once again, thank you so much for coming through. And like Tinuke has rightly said, we'll be having you back here in the not-too-distant future. And we spoke about Adamawa State House. I mean, he's running for the office of Adamawa State House of Rep. Why am I mixing this up? House of Representatives, yes, from Adamawa State, that is, you know, the platform of Action Alliance. And we looked at the topic, youth participation in politics. Well, that's the size of the program for today, and it's a weekend. Go out there, be good. Do not do what I would not do. Atinuke?
I commend my reserve on that.
All right. Have a wonderful day, and bye-bye for now. We'll be back with you same time next week on another interesting edition of the program, News Hub Extra.